to every single person that requested that I make this video, just to give you an overview, and for the people who don't know the backstory as to why I'm creating this video. Now, I teach a lot of people on how to get started in serviced accommodation, or how to build or scale their serviced accommodation business. One of the major problems with getting people on board, or people having the confidence to start, is understanding how much they are going to make, how much they can potentially make, where that money is going to be derived from, and how to determine how much they're going to be generating from a specific unit in a specific area. And I understand that this is the greatest fear in starting your serviced accommodation journey, because of course, if you get these figures wrong, then it's a downward spiral. And I'll show you why it's so important to get these figures as close as possible to, I would say, give or take 10%. Give or taking 10% is not going to cripple your business, but at least you play on the safe side. So the way I teach people on how to sort out the figures, or how to establish the figures, is based on worst case scenario. Now, a lot of people teach it because it makes it sound better. They use headline figures. Now, with headline figures, you are going to fail. For example, I could say, if you take on a property in this location, you are going to generate £5,000 per month. Now, to someone who doesn't understand what that means, in their mind, they believe they are going to make or profit £5,000 per month. But the very smart and cunning property trainer might say you are going to generate £5,000 a month, when in reality what they're talking about is what you need to net, or what they should be talking about is what you need to net. So let me break it down and I'll give you some examples. This might end up being quite a long video. Enjoy it if it helps you. If it doesn't help you, then at least you see things from my perspective. So the question is, how do I find out how much I'm potentially going to be making from a specific unit? So let's start from the first thing that we do. Now, before I go into that, the reason why I use booking.com as my base, as my main place to do my research, is because 50 to 70% of your bookings will come from booking.com. Booking.com spend at least 25 pence from every pound that's generated, and they put it back into marketing. So the name booking.com is now synonymous with accommodation. So it means most people, when they're looking for serviced accommodation or hotels to stay in, they are likely to start off on booking.com. And if you're brand new, don't listen to the hype. Don't listen to even people like me that say don't live and die on booking.com. And I say that meaning have a strategy on how to survive eventually by lowering and reducing the usage of booking.com. But let's get this very straight. If you are starting and you are brand new, you will need booking.com. They are your saving grace. They are your business, and you absolutely need to learn to use them and take advantage, but have a strategy on how to utilize them to eventually move on to build and scale your serviced accommodation business. So again, the reason why I use booking.com is because you will need to use them. Most of your bookings will come from booking.com. So it makes sense to understand it, and it makes sense to factor your figures based on booking.com figures, because most of your bookings will come from there. But let me just reiterate, most of your bookings will come from there, not all of your bookings. Yet, smart operators will base their entire figures on booking.com figures, because what we are trying to do is worst case scenario. So if 70% of your bookings come from booking.com, you still got 25% of your bookings that comes from elsewhere, which means you are not paying the 15% commission that booking.com would be charging on that additional 25%. So why would I factor my entire system based on booking.com? Because we're looking for the worst case scenario. If the figures still work as you saying, I'm going to get all my bookings and pay booking.com 15% of all of my bookings, then we've got a deal good and ready to go. But again, I'll show you in greater detail. So the first thing you want to do is get either one of the three things. So let's imagine you found a property, or you're looking at a specific property. The first thing you need is the postcode. If you don't have access to getting the postcode, you want to get the street address. If you can't get the street address, then we use the location, but the location is the last thing you want to use, and I'll explain in just a second. I want you to get the postcode, because what we are trying to do here through our analysis is to find credible references and credible sources. So I use that word, and they're quite important. Credible. Credible means people who have been there, done that, and are doing so. And I'll show you in a moment what I mean by that. So the reason why we want the postcode is because we want credible references, credible sources to use as our reference point. Now, another reason why we want the postcode is because we never analyze a deal outside of 1 mile of that postcode. Because 1 mile away from that postcode could be an entirely different area. So here in London, 1 mile from, let's say, Clapham could lead you into, let's say, Fulham or Earls Court. Well, not 1 mile, but you get my point. So what we want to do is we're looking for credible people within the same area, ideally the same building, the same street as where you are operating, and then we will determine whether they are credible enough for us to use as references. So let me just pick some London postcodes. I'll pick some central London ones because there's going to be some activity going on there. So let's just say SE1 7HS should come up because I've done this a lot of times. No, okay, we'll use PB. Number 1, so that's the first thing. So remember this, and I'm going to reiterate this so you get it. Number 1 is we're looking for the postcode of the property. If we can't get the postcode, we use the street address. If you've got the street address, then you can Google it and get the postcode. So make sure you are not lazy. The postcode is really important. We don't want to analyze a deal that's outside of 1 mile from ideally where we are taking on that property. Number 2. This section here, we only analyze based on midweek prices. So we never analyze based on weekend prices because a lot of people increase their prices on the weekend because that's where they make most of their money, and some people decrease their prices on the weekends because they don't have the market on the weekends. For example, in certain locations and in certain countries, for example, in Frankfurt, you would see that the entire city is completely empty on the weekends, because everyone travels back to their little villages and their little towns, and then they come back into Frankfurt for work from Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. So again, we never want to analyze weekend prices. We only analyze weekday prices because this gives us the worst case scenario. Now, I want you to look at this as the way I'm teaching it. I nearly want to make this deal not work. This deal needs to prove itself to me. I really don't want this deal to work. I want to walk away from this deal. This is how you have to look at every single deal. You want to make it not work, because that way you are protecting yourself to the nth degree. You are saying, God, this deal is really making me take it on, because the figures work at the worst case scenario. So remember, number 1, postcode or street address, because we don't want to analyze anything outside of 1 mile from this specific postcode. Number 2, we analyze based on midweek. Now, I always use Tuesday to Thursday because that is ultimately midweek. And it could be the week following, it could be further down the line, but use a Tuesday to Thursday because it's ultimately midweek. Some people are empty after Monday. Some people count Fridays as the weekend. So if you do Wednesday to Friday, you might get skewered figures. If you do Monday to Wednesday, you might get skewered figures from Monday. But of course, ultimately, midweek, meaning Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, are ideal. But we always use Tuesday to Thursday. So we're going to come back to this section in a moment. But remember this. Excuse me, for every 1 bed that you take on, you should be providing additional value by adding a sofa bed. So for every 2 bed that you take on, you should be adding additional value by adding a sofa bed. So in a 2 bed, you've got mum and dad in the front room, uncle and auntie in the second room, children on the sofa bed in the front room. So that's 6 people. We'll come to that in a moment. So let's go to search. Now, if you are in a very buoyant area, one of the things that you might want to look at, just to give yourself an inkling about what's really going on in the area, is the first page that comes up. Now, the first page that comes up is typically every single property that's available in that area. Now, again, as I said, if you're looking in central London or if you're looking in the centre of Birmingham, then the first thing that's going to come up is going to be a bunch of hotels. Just to give you an inkling, or just to give you an idea of what's going on, then you can have a look at some of these, and you can see that booked last time within the last, here we go, I can't go over it because it moves, but just booked twice for your date in the last 6 hours on our site. Then when I go on it, it says last booked 3 minutes ago on our site. Again, booked twice, booked 4 minutes ago. What you are looking for is just to give you a little bit of confidence that there is activity in this area. Again, booked 5 times within the last 1 hour. So imagine if you had a property in this area. Again, it starts to build up your confidence that, do you know what, I might be onto something here. And then we go to the left hand side here and we are looking for where it says apartments, because we are trying to analyze like for like, and we are trying to analyze what our current competitors and people who are in the area are currently doing. Now, bear in mind, I've mentioned a number of times, we are looking for credible references and credible references and credible operators. So when I use the word credible, let me ask you this as you're watching this video. What would we deem as credible? Well, credible is someone that's been there for quite some time. So how do we know someone's been there for quite some time? Well, you look at the amount of reviews that they've had. Now, how do we say, and why would we say they're credible? Because the amount of reviews is an indication that they are credible. So if someone's got 8.5 out of 10 and they've got 234 reviews, bearing in mind that many people, and I would say it's, I think 1 in 5 people, 1 in 4 people leave reviews. So we can assume they've had thousands and thousands of customers, but 234 reviews is a lot of reviews to be able to form an analysis. But let's start from here. So, would we say this is a credible person? 124 reviews. Absolutely. So let me write that down. 124 reviews at 596. Now, I want you to remember this and don't make this mistake. These figures right here are for 2 nights. The reason why we analyze across 2 nights is because many people on booking.com do not advertise their property for 1 night bookings. So what we're doing effectively is we're analyzing across 2 nights and then we divide it by 2 to get the actual nightly rate. So again, to reiterate, we are trying to make this deal not work. We are now looking for credible references that are within 1 mile of the postcode or the location that we are planning to take on our property. So let's go back to this. So we would say this is credible. Now, every single person always falls for this trick, because if I was to say to you, would you say this person, based on our analysis or based on our system, is credible? Every single person will say yes. However, of course, I would say they're credible, but I do not recommend that you use this specific person or this specific company as part of your analysis. Why? Why would we not use this overly credible person as part of our analysis? Well, because they are a part hotel. Remember, we are trying to find out what people just like us are doing, and people just like us who are credible. The reason I keep emphasizing credible is this. If somebody has 234 reviews and they're charging 518 divided by 2, let's just say, so that's £259. Let's just say that's £259 per night. Could you go with the assumption, a very high, strong assumption, that they haven't just made up this specific rate and they know what they are doing and they have a system in place and they have strategies in place to determine what's the right price for their business? This is what I'm trying to get you to understand. If someone has 234 reviews, they're not blagging it. That's the point. They haven't just plucked up a figure that makes them feel great based on the amount of work that they've done to the property, based on the furnishing, based on the time, based on the deal. For 234 people to have left a review and you've maintained an 8.5, we can assume quite strongly that they've hit a sweet point for their business. And us as new people are looking for people who know what they are doing in that specific area so we can emulate what they are doing. The mistake many people make when they're coming into serviced accommodation is, because of the time and effort that you've put into it, you assume you can therefore make up a price. And I've had clients who have done this before. They've had to spend a few thousands on kitting up the property. So they spent quite a lot of money on kitting up the property. They've paid 1 month rent, 6 weeks deposit. They've paid a sourcing fee. So it's cost them a lot of money to get started in the strategy. So in their mind, they've now done the calculation backwards and they've said, well, I've invested £6,000 into starting this business. In order for me to make my money back, I've got to charge £500 per night. No, it doesn't work like that. Just as a landlord can only charge a going rent in a going area, give or take 10-15% or minus 10-15% depending on the quality, it's the same thing as serviced accommodation. There is a going rate in the area. If you're in Birmingham and the going rate is 120 per night, you might be able to charge 125, 126, 130 at a push. You can't just say, well, because I've spent X amount of money on my property, I'm now going to charge £350 per night in Birmingham where the going rate is £120. This is why we are looking for credible references. People who have been there, done that, and are doing it. So let's go back to this. So this person right here, we would say is credible, 124 reviews. We would say this person, of course, is credible, but we don't use them because an apart hotel is a different strategy, albeit within the same family, but a different strategy. So we never use that for the analysis. Then we look at this person, 234, valet apartment Whitehall. We would say they're credible. Then we go down here and we say, look at this person right here, 146. Would we say they're credible? Of course we would. What we are looking for is 3 or 4 people on the front page that are classed as credible. So let's go to this. We can use this person, and they've got 596 divided by 2. Then we skip past this person, and then we see this person, and we say they are 518 divided by 2. Then we go to this person and we say they are 568 divided by 2. Can you notice something? Did you notice that the credible people with reviews that have been there for quite some time, that are doing it, are all charging around the same price? This is how you factor or find out what your optimal price is in the going area. We don't make up figures. You look at what the credible people are doing and you simply take the figures from there. So let's go back into this, and before we change the screen, I'll show you. So let's go back to this person here. They are charging 596 divided by 2 nights, so they are charging £298 per night. Then we go to this second person here, 518 divided by 2. They're now charging £259. And then we go to the third person here. This person is charging 596, 568 divided by 2. And that's 284. Okay, so what you want to do at this point is now make sure you've created, when you're setting up your booking.com account, on the first page, you scroll all the way down and it asks you a simple question: would you like to offer tiered pricing? Now, it's so important because a lot of people miss out on money or additional income because they don't do tiered pricing. Tiered pricing means staggered rate. So you have your base cost, or you have your base price, let's say at, based on these figures here, £259 per night for 2 people. But remember I said earlier on, if you've got a 1 bed, it should sleep 4 people. If you've got a 2 bed, it should sleep 6 people. Please follow me on this. So what you want to do is set your base price at these figures that we've got here. And then you can add, based on tiered pricing, an additional fee for every single person that stays in your property on top of your base fee. So let's say your base is 2 people. So we've now got 3 people, 4 people, 5 people, 6 people. What you need to do is then charge a fee, albeit £5, albeit £10, albeit £15 or £20 per person after your base cost. But that's something that you can go into your own time. But that's so vital because so many people are leaving money on the table. So let's go here to a deal analyzer. And I'm just going to make up figures here. So let's say for central London, you can get a 2-bed in that sort of location. Let's make up, let's say 2,200 per night. So all of these figures are factored in. And then we analyze this based on 70% occupancy. So if you're in London, you're looking at around 21.6 nights. If you're outside of London, you're looking at around, I think, 19 nights to 21.6 nights as well. But if you are in central London and you've got a great property in a great location and you've got the credible referencing, then you can actually look at an 85% occupancy as well, which is 26.35 nights. But let's crack on with this. I hope you guys can actually see this. There we go. Let me see. I don't want to touch anything because this system is delicate. Cool. So what we do here is we're looking at a rent of 2,200. And what we've done, remember, going back to the credible referencing that we were just talking about. So we had 3 people and we divided the figures by 2. And the lowest one came in at 259. And then the highest one came in at 298. Now, if it's a 2-bed, you're looking at 3 hours, maybe 4 hours clean. So we've got to adjust this. So I'm going to make an adjustment here for 3 hours to clean the apartment. But in reality, a 2-bed in central London, you are looking at 4 hours. So let's make it 4 hours. There we go. Now, this takes care of, so let me break this down so we're actually looking at the same figures. So based on what I've shown you, now, again, these are not typical figures. These are central London figures next to hotels. So again, you've got to do it based on getting the postcode. Now, in that specific area, you're not even allowed to do serviced accommodation at all. But again, I'm just trying to show you this for the purpose of how to analyze a deal. So all of this, we just input the rent here. You can create this by yourself. I can't give it to you. And it automatically factors all your costs in there. That's your total cost of running your fixed costs. And then your variables are down here. So 70% occupancy, you are going to pull in £5,594. Based on 85% occupancy, you're going to pull in £6,825. We say 4 hours cleaning, based on 70% occupancy, will be £432. We say 4 hours cleaning based on 85% occupancy is £527. Now, this is where myself and other trainers have certain discrepancies. I've factored that you will get all of your bookings through booking.com. Why? Because we want a worst case scenario. Well, in reality, we know you're not going to get all your bookings from booking.com, but we want to nearly make this deal not work. Hence why we loaded up with other figures as well, other credible figures. So let's go into this. 15% based on what you bring in here will be going to booking.com, which means you'll be paying booking.com around £839.16 based on 5,500, or you'll be paying booking.com £1,023.70 based on these figures right here. Now, I also factor in 2% credit card processing fees. Now, again, if you're on Airbnb, if you're on TripAdvisor, if you're on other platforms, you're not going to be processing cards. So there is no credit card fees. But again, to make sure you are protected, what we want to do is make sure this deal nearly doesn't work by loading it up with credible fees and credible costs. But we might not need it, but it's just worst case scenario. We nearly want to make this deal not work so we can walk away. So based on these figures right here, people in that area that we analysed are potentially pulling in £1,701 per month on that unit. Now, if you go here, remember we had worst case scenario, and then we've got this case. So this is what other people in the area are currently pulling in. They've got 250 worth of reviews. We know that they're pulling these sorts of things. We just don't know what their rental is. But again, you can always check this on Rightmove and Zoopla with regards to what the rental is. And you can always, if you're looking at a specific property, you've got the rental figures to determine what to put in here as well. Now, let's go back to this video if I can find it. Cool. We go back to what we called tiered pricing. So I want you to try and remember what some of these prices were on here. So this person, Stowaway Waterloo, they are charging, let me write this down so I remember, they're charging 596. Now we'll just use this just for the example I'm trying to show you. They're doing 724. These guys are doing 518. And remember that this is based on, have a look, 2 adults. So if you're doing tiered pricing, this is how you add more money to your bottom line. Now, not every single operator does tiered pricing, so not every single one of these will come up, but we'll find one just to give you an example. So we've got a 2-bed in the area that can sleep 6 people. Let's search it again. And then we're looking for apartments only. Right here under property type. Okay, so just have a look at these guys here. As I mentioned, we don't use them for our analysis, but it's just to show you what I mean with regard to tiered pricing. These guys, based on 2 people, were charging £724. Now they've got an additional 4 people. Their price has gone up to £1,038. In fact, let me click on this just to show you how tiered pricing actually works. So let's go to their pricing right here. Right here. So this is tiered pricing. Now it's tiered pricing in a sense, but you'll catch the drift because this is an apart hotel, so they do things a little bit different because they've got multiple apartments. But let's go based on this. So let's assume that they only had 1 flat or 1 apartment. If it sleeps 4 people, they will charge £808. If you now need to sleep 5 people or 6 people, look at the price difference. The price has now gone up dramatically, and you've gained yourself an extra £100-odd by doing tiered pricing. Let me give you another example. So these guys here, they've kept their prices the same. And laptop's playing up. Let me see if I can see anyone else that we remembered. So the first one that was here, Stowaway Waterloo, they've disappeared. Maybe they're not available for that amount of people, but you catch my drift. Anyway, guys, I wish you all the best. I hope this helps you in your analysis, and I hope you get your figures straight. But as I mentioned before, this is just for an example. These figures are not typical. Don't start looking at these sort of figures. The reality is you are looking at lesser figures in this. So just to show you again, actually, before I round up, if you were to take on a property that's 2,200 per night and you were only able to generate 150 per night on this, then realistically you're going to be losing around £253 per night. This is why you've got to get it right, because if you then went and put this, and let's say you thought you were going to be generating £250 per night, this is what you were anticipating to generate, 1,540, but let's say you got the figures wrong and it's really 150 per night, you're actually making a significant loss. So what happens if you've got a JV partner? What happens if you took a loan? What happens if you borrowed the money to start the business? This is why you've only got to use credible people who are in the area, who have been doing this, who are doing this, and that's your greatest strength, and that's your greatest way of analyzing the deal. Of course, there are multiple ways, but this is the fundamental way to get started. I wish you all the best. Bye-bye.